Good morning, I'm Jon Thelen. Today I'm fish ed. I'm out on Lake of the Woods, and I'm going to spend some time today with my good friend from Zippo Bay Resort, Nick Painovich. We're out here fishing post cold front. Let me tell you something, it was one of the nastiest cold fronts I've seen in a long time. 3 days of big north wind, cold weather, water temps have dropped, and you know what? Fishing can really be tough sometimes after those situations. But let me tell you, there are ways to catch them, and we're going to show you exactly how to do it today. Stay right where you're at. Fish ed's coming up. Still hanging on it?
A little bit, not much there. But there's one.
Good. Hey, get these slow starts sometimes in the morning like we've had today, right behind these cold fronts, and that's it doesn't look like a bad fish, huh?
Yeah.
Hard to tell.
Churning up the water a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a good walleye to start our day. He'll end up in the live well. Yeah. Look at that, just a nice little 15-incher, and we're gonna get a bunch of these today. This is that time of the year where up here on Lake of the Woods, you catch a whole ton of these fish, and that right there is a fun way to catch them, jigging. And we're right behind a cold front, like I was saying. I mean, the last few days have been just miserable. I'll tell you, the wind has been ripping. Yeah. We couldn't go out yesterday. I mean, we were hoping to fish yesterday. There was just no way to get out on the water. And one of the things that happens in the springtime that can be so frustrating is when you get these cold fronts come through and it blows that it churns everything up, but you get that cold air at night, the water gets so cold so quickly. It takes a while to warm up in the spring, but boy, I'll tell you, those cold fronts can plummet it right back down, and that's what happened. We've dropped 3 or 4 degrees and it changes the whole bite, and there's still ways to catch them. You just got to work at it. We're going to talk about that a little bit today, because these are the days that you're happy to be on the water, but let me tell you, the last 3 days are affecting today far more than what you've got today. So there's some changes you can make, some things you can do, and we're going to go through those today, because post cold front, these are the days you want to be out. It's beautiful, but fishing can sometimes be pretty tough. But there is ways to catch them, and we'll get through some of those as we go today. Great job. That's a good start.
Yeah, let's do it again.
And I'm picking jig sizes for these post-cold front situations. A lot of times, especially when I'm fishing deep water like I am today, I'm gonna pick a heavier jig. I don't need a 3/8 ounce jig to get down there. A 1/4 ounce jig would do me just fine today. But here's why I'm using a 3/8. A lot of times behind these cold fronts, you wanna do almost a still hold. I mean, I'm jigging a little bit. If you watch me today, I'm jigging a little, but a lot of times, I'm just holding it still, and that heavier jig just makes sure that line is tight, so that when I lift, it falls back down real tight, and then I can also just hold it there and feel everything, because a lot of these bites are gonna be just barely a nibble, and if that line's not tight from the get-go, a lot of times that fish will bump it and just let it go. So that's why I start with that heavier jig, especially when I'm in deep water right behind these cold fronts, when I wanna be really still, very subtle with my jigging. It's a lot easier with that heavier 3/8 ounce Lindy jig that I'm using today versus say an 1/8 ounce that I might be able to get by with, or a 1/4 on a different day when the fish are really aggressive. Got him. That feels like a decent one here, Nick. Yeah, this is a good one. We've caught enough little fish today, and that's one of the things you go through when you got a bite like this going on behind these cold fronts, is you'll get a lot of those fish they're just small, they're just the wrong size. This one here, look at that, that's a better fish. Certainly no giant, but you know what? Just a dynamite eater. And this is just, like I say, one of those days where it's been a little bit of a struggle to come up with that right size fish, but boy, he came up and smacked it. Look at that, he's got broken off dorsal fin there. But one of the things I'll point out too about how we're fishing today is when you look at the locations we're fishing, what you got to do is understand that a lot of times what a cold front will do is push fish deeper. They just go find that area where the pressure doesn't affect them as much, and a lot of times that's deeper. And what these fish have done today is just slid off a structure. So I'm working my way along these different rock piles, these different reefs, but I'm staying out on that outer edge. And you know, we've heard that for years that that's the way it works, but one of the things I am doing is I'm going up and down, because one of these times I'm gonna roll up across the top, and these fish, they're gonna be up there eating. I mean, it's just a question of when. And what happens is it just takes some time to all of a sudden turn back on. And we're getting close to that. I mean, we're into that noon hour time frame where all of a sudden these fish eventually, they're just all going to go back up on top and they're going to start eating. But what I'm doing right now is just working my way around the edges. I can graph most of these fish, but then I'm going back up and I'm coming back down and I'm trying to catch them when they do go up there to really start eating. And that one right there, he was just right on the edge. So maybe a few of them are starting to work their way up. I think I got pretty lucky this morning when I reached in the jig box and grabbed a pink jig. It's just one of my favorite colors to start with on days like today, and here's why. All said and done, I'm trying to grab the fish's attention. When these walleyes are just laying flat belly on the bottom, they're seeing all kinds of natural bait down there and your golds and all your natural colors. That's what they're used to seeing. What I was doing this morning is trying to pick a color that would jump out at them. I mean, there's no bait swimming around in this lake that's really pink. I mean, there's no natural rainbows in this body of water. So all said and done, you're not going to get any of that natural pink stuff. But here's what I think that pink jig is doing. I think it's grabbing their attention. It's making a fish is just laying there watching other stuff swim by, get excited, turn and snap on it. There's a lot of different jigs out there, but you know, Lindy jig we're using today, I want to show you a couple things that set it apart, because this is, in my opinion, the best jig out there. I mean, it's the jig that makes your life the easiest, all right? And let me show you why. Number one, most importantly, every time you pull a Lindy jig out, you've got a clean line tie eye. What that means is no digging out paint. So you got the wind blowing, you got a cold day, whatever it may be. You don't get to dig paint out of there. And let's face it, what do we all do? We all use a different jig and we use another hook. So what we're doing at that point is we're just dulling the hook on another jig. You don't ever got to worry about that with a Lindy jig. And then secondly, we put a high quality hook in it. So you're going to be able to, you know, set the hook on fish, big, small, whatever it is, and not ever worry about a hook straightening out on you. And then we also do a protruded eye. That gives it a 3D look and really makes it look real to the fish down there. Look at this, I got a fish on here as we're talking about this.
Yeah, I got
Look at that, got him. So those are the reasons though that I choose to use that Lindy jig, because ultimately, I'm gonna close that box before that ends up in the lake. I don't think I got a real big one. Hey, what's yours like, Nick?
Oh,
look at that.
About the same.
All right, but I'll tell you what, this is definitely the jig that you want to use, because that one's not a bad one. We'll throw that one in the well.
Why not?
That's a great eye right there. That's a super way to wrap up the day too. I'm gonna throw mine back, and we'll get that one and throw him in the well and take him home. But man, I'll tell you, hasn't been the easiest day of fishing. But when you really look at it, we've been able to pick fish off throughout the day, and it's just by making some of those adjustments, using the right stuff, going the right speeds, fishing the right areas. You put all that together, and even on these bluebird sky days, when you got flat calm like this, no matter what's going on, no matter what it is that's against you, you can still find a way to catch some fish. Let's get him in the well and head back home.
Absolutely.